Good evening, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for joining me. Today is February 11, 2022. So I will share just a few news for today. Uh, the situation with Ukraine and Russia might be heading to the war. Uh, that's a very serious one we are watching. And the Biden administration urged all US citizens to leave Ukraine. Let me start with the expression of condolence on the passing of a very important uh, Oromo figure. You know, some people are just visible on international or national media, but this lady is not that kind of person, but she has played a very important role in the struggle for freedom in Ethiopia, especially for the freedom movement of Oromos. So let me read this statement. The Edmonton, Canada Oromos and the Friends of Oromo community are grieving uh, on the passing of Karima Sheka. Karima Sheka was a courageous, dedicated, and resilient woman who played a significant role in the Oromo's quest for freedom. She paid a heavy price, including losing her husband, her brother, and her wealth as the result of her commitment in Oromo's struggle for freedom, justice, dignity, and equality in Ethiopian empire. The grief is heavy, especially to families, relatives, friends, and the Oromos reside in the town of Awadai and Badessa, Ethiopia. Karima Sheka's sacrifices and honorable deeds in Oromo's freedom movement will be imprinted in the golden book of heroic Oromos. Concerned Citizens Media deeply saddened on the passing of this heroic fighter and expresses its deepest condolences to the families, relatives, and friends of Karima Sheka. I wish them strength and comfort at this challenging time. Karima Sheka, you did what you could for our journey toward freedom. It is our turn to carry on the torch you and others ignited. Karima Sheka, I also really miss you as a family and close friend. You have been a lot to me and to my family. May God bless you. May God bless your soul. Rest in peace. From Concerned Citizens Media. US Congress advances bill to sanction those fueling war in Ethiopia. Legislation has advanced in the US House of Representatives to impose sanctions on Ethiopians committing human rights abuses, blocking food aid delivery, or taking other actions that are worsening the country's 15-month crisis. It would also sanction those providing training, weapons, or financial support to those involved in the conflict. The proposed Ethiopian Stabilization, Peace and Democracy Act was voted out of the House Foreign Affairs Committee on Tuesday. It can now be voted on by the full US House. A similar bill is being considered in the Senate. If enacted, The bill would sanction individuals as well as suspend U.S. security and financial assistance to the Ethiopian government until certain human rights conditions are met. It would also require the U.S. to oppose loans by international agencies such as the World Bank and International Monetary Fund to Ethiopia and Eritrea. Congressman Tom Malinowski, a Democrat from New Jersey who co-sponsored the bill, said urgent action is needed. The war in Ethiopia has created one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world, and all the combatants, along with their foreign backers, are responsible for horrific abuses of basic human rights, he said. Today, that means yesterday, Congress is committing together to say that the conflict must end and to hold accountable all those responsible for perpetuating it. The bill follows September sanctions and the November decision to suspend Ethiopia from the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGWA, which allows African countries exporting duty-free access to the U.S. market. One of the issues of ongoing concern to Congress is also the mass detention of Tigrayan civilians in several cities across Ethiopia, including the capital city, Addis Ababa. Rights groups, including Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, say ethnic Tigrayans have been targeted since the start of the conflict in November 2020, citing reports of forced disappearances and arbitrary arrests, among other human rights violations. The mass detention of the Tigrayan civilians in unlivable conditions is a human rights violation so outrageous that it demands a forceful U.S. response, tweeted Congressman Brad Sherman of California, calling for action on what he called an atrocity. The bill calls on the State Department to determine whether war crimes, crimes against humanity, or genocide has been perpetrated by any party to conflict. It also asks states to report on the role of foreign governments, including those of China, the United Arab Emirates, and Turkey, in fueling the conflict. The bill has drawn condemnation from the Ethiopian government and supporters in the global diaspora. The American Ethiopian Public Affairs Committee, a non-profit diaspora organization that has supported the government during this conflict, put the blame squarely on the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. The bill ignores the millions in Amara and Afar who were victims of the TPLF's attack, the AEPA said in a tweet. So this group is supporting Abiy Ahmed, so they are opposing this bill. The United Nations has said thousands have been displaced by the conflict in the country, and more than 60,000 Ethiopians, mostly from the Tigray region, are seeking refuge in neighboring Sudan. The United Nations estimates that about 9.4 million people in northern Ethiopia's Tigray, Amara, and Afar regions are in dire need of humanitarian assistance. Credit Voice of America. So it's a good thing to account all these criminals who committed human rights violations and conducting these ethnic-based, arrests. This is shame on Ethiopia, but still continue. So this is a very bad sign, and they should be punished. They should be punished. Oromo Liberation Front calls for an end to torture of jailed members of senior leaders protest in hunger strike. The Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, accused the ruling party of torturing its jailed members. In a statement released today, the party detailed the condition of its senior leaders who are currently detained in detention center in the Oromia special zone surrounding Finfinne. The leaders are on a hunger strike for over a week, protesting prolonged unlawful detention, according to the statement. Subsequently, their health conditions have deteriorated over the last couple of days, and the family members are prevented from visiting them, the statement said. The public relations head of the OLF told Addis Standard that the party's jailed members, including senior leaders like Mikhail Boran, Qananiisa Ayyaana, Daawit Abdata, Lammi Benya, Gada Gabbisa, and the former PR Bati Urgeessa were detained in several informal detention centers in towns like Mojo, Awash, Malkasa, Galan, Sabbata, and Burayu over the last several months. Some of our members were detained in solitary confinement in Oromia Special Forces camp called Sololia in a Gelan town. Most of them are held in terrible conditions and denied family visitation, Lammi said. The statement issued this morning listed the names of 3 journalists who are held in Sabbata police station alongside 27 other members of the party. The chief of the prison guard in Sabbata police station denied Dechasa Wirtu, Bikila Ammanu, and Desu Dula, journalists who work for the TV channel affiliated with the party, Oromo News Network, are denied food for the last 2 days, according to Lammi. The PR also disclosed that OLF pleaded with the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission to address the human rights violation while in detention. We sent several letters to the Commission last year regarding the forced disappearance of our members from different detention centers, but we never got any response, he said. Lammi recalled that the party wrote consecutive letters to the Commission in May, June, and October last year. The Commission of Ethiopia Human Rights the commissioner of the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, Daniel Bekkele, and the commission's spokesperson couldn't be reached for comment. Lammi, who put the total number of OLF members and supporters jailed across Oromia in tens of thousands, expressed frustration with the suffering of the party members at the hands of the ruling party. The statement concluded by calling on the international community and the human rights advocate to speak for the jailed Oromo Liberation Front members. The party also called on the Oromo people to stand in solidarity with them and their families. So that's a very challenging and the rule of law is broken. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his supporters are using illegal prison cells and also detaining those who are freed by judges after they check their cases. Just like one case is Colonel Gammachu Ayana. He was freed multiple times. His case was dismissed by the court, but still the Prime Minister and his supporters are holding him illegally. And there is a law and order break. in Ethiopia under the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. And I said also the Ethiopia Human Rights Commission is not independent. It is funded by Ethiopian government, and that's why his best is not speaking for all Ethiopians. He's just speaking for you know, whoever feel. That's why the OLF is complaining after informing them to speak up multiple times on the detention of these OLF officials. So that's very serious, you know, allegation. So we need a response from Ethiopian Human Rights Commissioner Daniel Bekele. So those who are suffering on hunger strike now, according to this one, is the rush to the hospital. The jailed leaders of the Oromo Liberation Front, OLF, who are reportedly on hunger strike for over a week, were rushed to the hospital in Addis Ababa. Dirbi Demise, the president of Macha Tulama Association, told Addis Standard. OLF senior leaders like Michael Boran, Kananisa Yana, David Abdata, Lammi Benya, Gada Gabisa, and the former PRB Bati Urgesa, who are currently detained in Burayu, were taken to the Federal Police Hospital in Lideta, Dirbi said. According to Dirbi, the leaders were brought to the hospital last night. Dirbi quoted the doctors as saying the detainees are unable to eat and that they were to be resuscitated by IV fluids. The public relations head of the party, Lammi Gammachu, however, told Addis Standard that the doctors refused to admit, citing fear of taking responsibility for their lives. They were brought back to the hospital this morning from Burayu, Lammi said, adding family members and the lawyers are prevented from seeing them. The PR quoted a health professional who divulged that Kanasa Ayana is unconscious, while Michael Boran and Bati Urgesa are in a critical conditions. Bati Urgesa's wife, Beza Haile, told Addis Standard, I have no idea about the condition my husband is in. I am very anxious. Dirbi, on his part, said that a team of elders who previously went to the detention center pleaded with the detainees to end the hunger strike. They told us they prefer dying than suffer a never-ending justice, he recounted. So this is the situation we are facing in Ethiopia. It's a very, very, very grave human rights violations happening under this prime minister for the last 3 years and before. So we need the international community to pay serious attention and hold this prime minister accountable and his supporters accountable for what they are doing in Ethiopia. This is a very grave human rights violation. Oromo Federalist Congress decries appalling endless suffering of Ethiopians in Saudi detention facilities. In a statement released yesterday, opposition party Oromo Federalist Congress, OFC, decried the endless suffering of thousands of Ethiopian nationals in detention facilities in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and said it was appalling. OFC said that at the heart of the suffering was the fact that none of the development policies formulated in our country are participatory and effective. And even if they are applied to a certain extent, it is to fulfill the interest of certain individuals and groups and do not meet the needs of our people. An investigation by Addis Standard into the condition of Ethiopians detained in Saudi Arabia's prisons revealed that a crackdown on illegal migrants has targeted many Ethiopians. A subsequent report revealed that testimonies offered via multiple calls from detainees inside the kingdom's detention facilities continued. According to the detainees, nursing mothers, infants, and pregnant women continue suffering in these facilities without sufficient food, medicine, and a proper place to sleep. The detainees kept urging the Ethiopian government to intervene and repeatedly complained about Ethiopia embassy officials in KSA and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs officials of abandoning their responsibilities and ignoring their pleas to rescue them. In its statement, the Oromo Federalist Congress said that although Ethiopia is praised for registering a robust economic growth, there has been no attempt to address poor people's basic need. Indeed, what is evident is the fact that the wealth of the few is piling up, while we possess large tracts of land and abundant natural resources. Citizens are at risk of persecution for seeking the betterment of themselves and their families. OFC said and laminated that because our country's political leadership is distorted, no small number of people are fleeing the country. In the last 30 years alone, citizens have been forced to flee to foreign lands, especially to Arab countries, where they have been exposed to deserts, extortion, and wild beasts. The plight of young people killed on the shores of Libya and the suffering as a result of long-term detention of individuals in Saudi Arabia. Most recently, the status of thousands detained in several detention facilities as particularly appalling, OFC said. Many people are calling the attention of the government, and it is not uncommon for people to say that the government should save the lives of these people. OFC supports this idea, the party said. Nabiyu Sirak, a journalist and a community advocate who lived and was active in Saudi Arabia, recently told Addis Standard that more than 500,000 Ethiopians are estimated to be living in Saudi Arabia, both legally and illegally, of which more than 100,000 of them are now suffering in the kingdom's prisons. Outside the prison, an estimated 20,000 Ethiopian migrants are in danger, Nabiyu said, and spoke about the year-long government initiative that resulted in the return of more than 42,000 undocumented migrants. But he argued that none of these initiatives provided a lasting solution. We know of different initiatives, including sending a delegation to Saudi from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but it remains a fact that the government failed at stopping the harassment and suffering of its citizens. The large-scale crackdown continued, and the remaining citizens remain under the threat of harassment and abuse. This is on Houthis terrorist attack in Saudi Arabia. This is a press release yesterday from U.S. State Department. So Houthis are still launching drone attacks to Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. The United States condemned the terrorist attack by Houthis yesterday that struck the commercial airport in Aba, Saudi Arabia, injuring at least a dozen innocent civilians. We wish the victims a full recovery. Repeated attacks of the last several weeks have harmed civilians and the civilian infrastructure, and undermine international efforts for a peaceful solution to the Yemen conflict and threaten the more than 70,000 US citizens living in Saudi Arabia. The Houthis have pursued a dangerous pattern of increasingly obstructive and aggressive action against Yemeni's neighbors, and the international community. As President Biden reiterated in his call to King Salman yesterday, the United States is firmly committed to supporting the defense of Saudi Arabia. The United States, along with the international community, continue to urge de-escalation of the conflict. The parties should come to the negotiating table to work together and support the new, more inclusive UN-led peace process. So I hope that will be true. I hope that will be successful, because this war has been ongoing for a long time. So it started by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and now it's almost since 2014, I think 2015 or 2015 or 2014. So the suffering is high on civilians, on properties. So that's all I have for reading. Let's share some short videos. The first one is United Nations Deputy Secretary visits and in Ethiopia, in Afar, and the different areas. And then we have other videos after that. Let's see what she say. What she's saying about ongoing situation in Ethiopia.
That are with us. Gives me really great pleasure to be able to speak just briefly. I wish we had more time about this extraordinary visit that we've had to Ethiopia. Humbled and happy to have been at the opening of the AU Summit. The AU Summit itself provided an opportunity to speak with African leaders on many issues on the continent, from development to conflict, humanitarian crises, but then stepping off into Ethiopia to witness the tragedies of the conflict all round. There is never a winner in conflict, and to see the efforts that are being made by the government and people in Ethiopia for peace. Visiting the regions from Tigray to Amhara, Somali, and this morning to Afar, to hear from the leaders there, to hear from the people, and to hear really what their hopes are and how they will engage with this pathway to peace. I also met with very many of the workers of the United Nations in partnership with Ethiopians in trying to get humanitarian aid and assistance to the people that need it most. And this perhaps is the biggest call that we have, is that humanitarian assistance needs to get there yesterday. The urgency at which it needs to find, especially women and children that have been affected by this, is extremely important. As you have heard before, the Secretary General continues to reiterate his call for the cessation of hostilities in the country, for us to find that pathway to peace through the national dialogue. This has been a journey of solidarity with the Ethiopian people. It is one that we are convinced you will find a way, and we will accompany the Ethiopian people to that peace. Then we can really begin to talk about the investments that we need to make in development. This is important in the short and in the longer term. So thank you.
That there have been progress in peace talks and mediation efforts, particularly led by the African Union. Once you're here on the ground, how are these progress manifested? Have you seen any practical implications of this progress that the Secretary General has said, particularly in the ground?
Yes, we have, with African leaders that continue to speak with the government here and other leaders. Today I was in the field, and the African Union Special Envoy, former President Obasanjo, was in Afar, and yesterday he was in Tigray. So yes, I think that the talks continue, and there is certainly less hostility than there was a few months ago. We are in a much better place, and there is much more conversation and dialogue and talk around the national dialogue itself and the way to peace.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're not able to take more questions. She has to catch a flight.
The lady. Yes, I did, and I think the demands are known by all sides, that one wants to see more humanitarian assistance, the cessation of hostilities, and the dialogue to answer those demands that have been haven't changed. They're the same. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, that's a briefing by Amina Mohammed, I think, United Nations Deputy Secretary, next to Antonio Guterres.
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. And you?
Briefing the...
Okay.
Along the U.S.-Canadian border, the truckers' blockade is slowly taking its toll. This paddle border is moving faster than traffic. And as rebels and 18-wheelers demanding an end to COVID-19 restrictions continue using their freedom convoy to block the border on the Canadian side, the pain is being felt on both sides. Ford has stopped its auto assembly line in Windsor, Toyota has closed 3 plants across Ontario, and General Motors is cutting shifts in Michigan. And those closures threaten to reverberate throughout the auto supply chain. Despite the added time in traffic, this trucker says the demonstrators have a point.
Everybody has the right to, to do whatever he wants, If I want to die, I want to die. I don't care.
Okay, I support him, but I think it kind of sucks, all the traffic here,
That's wrong.
On Thursday,
If you
the
want to
truckers opened
die,
another
you
front,
can't
blocking
do
all
it
lanes on
in
Manitoba's
isolation,
main
but you are
crossing to
impacting
North
others
Dakota.
when you go
With
out.
the Ambassador Bridge blocked from Detroit to Windsor, traffic on the
That's
busiest
wrong
land
on these
crossing in
people.
North America is shut down entirely from the U.S. to Canada and all but closed in the other direction. Trucks carrying everything from cattle to car parts, which under automakers' just-in-time delivery system need to be delivered within 48 hours to keep assembly lines rolling, have been diverted to the crossing between Port Huron, Michigan, and the Canadian city of Sarnia. At the Blue Water Bridge, these trucks are getting across to Canada, but wait times have been up to 3 hours and traffic crawls. And that's likely to continue as long as the truckers' blockade goes on and politicians seem unwilling to crack down. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau insists Canada will follow the science.
Not only are Canadians tired of this pandemic, of the challenges we're facing, but they're also, of course, tired of the restrictions, tired of the rules, tired of the lockdowns. That is understandable. But you know what helps lift restrictions? You know what helps move beyond lockdowns? Vaccinations.
But some Canadian provinces, including Alberta and Saskatchewan, have eased COVID rules. And Quebec and Prince Edward Island announced plans to do the same. But with plans for a freedom convoy in the U.S., the truckers' protests show no sign of ending. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, on the U.S. border with Canada.
Thanks, Jake. It sounds like you're saying that the assessment
this is the
previously
last one.
that has not yet made a decision
Ukraine and Russia.
still stands. So I guess based on that, is it your assessment that it's more likely that invasion could happen now than previously believed?
Look, it's hard to assign percentage probabilities to any of this. We have to think about the range of scenarios that we confront, and it's our job to be ready for all of them. So what I will say is that the way that he has built up his forces and put them in place, along with the other indicators that we have collected through intelligence, makes it clear to us that there is a very distinct possibility that Russia will choose to act militarily, and there is reason to believe that that could happen on a reasonably swift time frame. Now, we can't pinpoint the day at this point, and we can't pinpoint the hour, but what we can say is that there is a credible prospect that a Russian military action would take place even before the end of the Olympics.
And the warning that you just delivered to Americans who are in Ukraine saying that they should get out now while they still can, do you have a picture of how many Americans right now are in Ukraine?
I would refer you to the State Department for the specifics on this because I don't want to do it off the top of my head. There's basically two categories. There are those who have registered with the embassy and those who have not registered with the embassy. In the first category, obviously, they have a number, although some of those folks have already left and didn't deregister. In the second category, we don't know because, of course, no American is obligated or required. So you can't fix a perfect number, but they're the ones who are best positioned to be able to explain what our current picture is of American citizens in Ukraine. What I can do is stand before the world media and send a very clear message to all Americans and to any American who's in Ukraine right now who needs help, needs financial help, or needs logistical help to take advantage of a commercial option to get out, please call the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv because we stand ready to provide.
Okay, so that's a very serious, very alarming, and we are watching it. I don't know where the Foreign Affairs Network was saying Vladimir Putin, Russian president, already ordered the attack. So I didn't hear from other medias, but this one is also telling us the attack may be imminent. So we are watching it. That's a very serious thing. I hope, Vladimir Putin restrain from attacking Ukraine and find a peaceful solution. So thank you again for joining me. That's all I have for today, and I will be back with other news and update. Please share, like, subscribe, and comment on my videos. Talk to you soon. So long and be safe. And please, we are, still we are not out of the wood. This COVID-19 is still around. It's killing people. And please, be mindful on gathering for wedding, for baby shower, all this. Be careful. Still, more people are not vaccinated. So, until 100% vaccinated, we will not be out of this danger, still killing family, relatives, friends. Thank you, and be safe. So long, everyone.